Yeah, feel free. Nobody's got to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah. If you guys have more questions, by all means. If maybe things I didn't cover.
Can you receive SSDI and SSI
Yes, you can.
at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. You can receive SSDI and SSI. If your
That's the
SSDI,
question, I was just curious.
yeah, sure. If your SSDI is a small number, let's say you don't make much money, it's only $250, then you're still income eligible, $250 a month. You're still under the $980 for SSI, so you could receive your SSI number. But again, they would take that $250, count it as income from SSDI, subtract it from your 980, do some kind of mathematical formula, and come up with some number where you're receiving something in between. I think it's designed that it comes out to exactly the same number you receive from SSI. So you receive $795 directly from SSI. If you receive SSDI, you receive $200 from SSDI, and then you receive $595 from SSI. You know what I mean? It comes out to, you're never going to be over that. Yeah.
And the other way to get both SSI and SSDI is through the pass plan. You're on SSDI, you apply for pass, and you're approved. Then what they do is they expect you to use your SSDI income, and they expect you to apply that towards your plan. And then they also place you on SSI. So you have to live off of your SSI and use all of the income from the SSDI to be applied towards the plan.
Pass plans are pretty nice. You can do a lot of things. They let you really get a lot of stuff. You know, they expect you to go to work, you know, whether you do that or you don't. You know,
Has anyone ever used the pass plan?
No.
I actually did. I was early 2000s. My goal was to get my pilot's license, become a commercial pilot, and also become a flight instructor. So I applied for the pass plan. I was approved, and they covered all of my flight training fees and everything else. I was actually trying to buy a plane to the pass plan, but instead I just got a car.
What does that mean? They covered it. They just allowed you to have it.
They allowed me to save up enough so I could cover the cost of the instruction. So
Plus
that, in total it was about maybe $55,000.
Yeah.
Flight training.
Plus, you know, things that you receive from organizations like VESID, crime victims. You know, sometimes they'll give you like a large asset, or they'll give you like $20,000 for something. That actually would make you ineligible for certain SSI or SSDI services, but if it's included in the pass, it's okay. So usually, even if you're getting, you know, large tuition or some kind of support from something else, you usually should have a pass plan for that as well.
What if I get an inheritance by my sainted grandmother?
Inheritance would be considered income. I mean, you get it, so you'd probably need a trust for it. It's kind of looked at the same way a personal injury lawsuit would. Once the IRS gets done with you, then you have to figure out what to do with Medicaid and DOH. You know?
I mean, how would that affect if you wanted on a pass plan?
Well, how
Or
would
just
it
in
affect
general?
In general.
Oh, in general, yeah. I mean, if you had a pass plan, and you know you had a $50,000 goal because you needed to buy, you know, a lawnmower or something, because that was your plan, then that $50,000 would go into your pass. But aside from the pass, like I said, it'd be treated like the same way a lawsuit would, where you need to do something that's still resources for Medicaid purposes. You need a trust, or you need to do something. You know what I mean? Technically, you can use that money in a month and never lose Medicaid. You can spend $50,000 on a car, spend it on other, you know, non-countable assets, and if you do it within a month, you're good, as long as you have receipts and you can show where the money went. Because if the money becomes liquid and becomes cash, then they go, okay, you're ineligible. But if you spend it all, even if you go on 3 vacations, they're okay, as long as you can show receipts that the money's gone.
So, on another note, my husband's self-employed, and all this time he's been injured 4 years, and we didn't know any of this. So I thank you for that, because we've been paying $1,790 a month for health insurance for my family.
Wow.
And
You
stuff.
probably don't get as much Medicaid gives you anyway.
Yeah, they don't give me nothing, and they keep on canceling me.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm like lost as to how to go about, because we are self-employed. I was told that because he owns a business that he's not eligible for anything. So.
We could talk in more detail.
Yeah, because
Talk
I'm
about the
lost. I don't know
details.
how to, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, apparently a lot of this stuff's going to change when Obamacare kicks in, but you know they keep pushing it back year after year. We'll never make it to that day. So,
It's starting August 1st. What do you mean?
some parts of Obamacare started August 1st. The employment portions of I can't even make sense of it all. I mean, and I'm an attorney. I guess I know I have my
That's scary.
I know I have my Medicaid. That's all that matters. Obamacare doesn't affect us on Medicaid, so we're good. I mean, Obamacare really is just an extension of Medicaid nationally. New York has one of the most expansive Medicaid programs as it is. So, you know, when Obamacare was thought up, it was thought about every state out there that didn't have New York Medicaid, you know. New York Medicaid is actually really expansive. We have the largest Medicaid program in the country, I believe. Any other questions?
Do the rules change if you get SSDI because you were from your father? Because you were a child when you got injured?
That's a really good question. Your SSDI stays the same as it was, but your ability to work and the SSGA rules don't change. Substantial gainful activity is clearly defined. If you're doing it, you're no longer disabled. You're able to work. If you're not doing it, you know, however you got SSDI is the same way. That's my interpretation of it. I've never looked into that, but I've never read or seen anything that suggests that it's different.
Okay. Are there any other trusts available to safeguard your funds?
There's all types of trust available. I mean, trust is like a 3-hour topic. I mean, there's first-party trust, third-party trust, all different types of trust. They're not all for Medicaid purposes. You know, I only spoke about the special needs trust, which is for Medicaid. Other trusts can also keep you eligible. Other trusts for other people's names. You know, your family wants to give you $1 million, but they don't want to give it to you because it would make you ineligible for everything you get. So they put it in a special type of trust, you know, a third-party trust, where they just keep putting money in there for you that goes to you and doesn't count against your assets. You know, so there are various trusts. There's also a lot of different trustees. There's a list available of New York like Medicaid certified trusts where you can still keep stuff. NYSARC is the most common one that is used. It's a little bit strict because they watch you a lot, but it has a little bit more open rules where you can do a few more things than some other trusts. So again, this would be a really long topic. There's a lot of trusts. If anybody's interested in opening one, you're more than, I don't want to say it too loosely, but more than welcome to reach out. So, any other questions? It can't be that it covered everything.
I have a question for the group. What's your biggest concern? Is it losing Medicaid or is it losing the SSI, SSDI?
It's one of my concerns,
Losing what?
because I'm working right now, but I'm not getting paid right now. So I'm working at a stockbroker firm, studying for my Series 7, but when I do pass that, am I gonna lose it? Obviously I'm gonna lose it, right?
You concerned about?
Lose what?
Medicaid?
SSI.
SSI you're going to lose. When you go back to work and you start making money, you lose SSI. But that's the whole point. I mean, if you pass your Series 7, I mean, I'm going to tell you how the government thinks about it. You can think however you want. If you pass your Series 7, you become a stockbroker, you start making, you know, $5,000 a month. You know, why do you need, why do you need $795 a month? Oh, you still need care, you still need supplies. Okay, we'll find a way to keep your Medicaid or Medicare. You know, are you going to lose SSI? You'll get a trial. You know, you'll get a chance to work. But yeah, you will lose your SSI.
I don't know why. A lot of things. I've been working for a few years, and I have my own private insurance in my company. But I found that there's a lot of things when I go for, like, I need sometimes, I need overnight or something. Somebody to be with me overnight, whatever. When I looked into certain things like that, they'd say, well, you want Medicaid? No. Well, I can't help you.
Right.
It's like, I have private insurance. Oh, well, you know. And it's like, you know, it's... You know.
Private, I mean, if you're going to fight with anybody, it'd be your private insurer in a case like that. To be like, you know, you have to do this, and most private insurances, you know, have some weird rules. You don't have a lot of power to go after them, but sometimes they do like 60 hours of home care a year or something weird like that. And how exactly that works, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you're like myself, you know, 12, 24-hour home care situations candidates, you need Medicaid. Private insurers ain't doing that. It ain't happening. That's why Medicaid is the name of the game. You know, especially when you're you know, significantly, you know, need significant amount of home care hours. And that's only New York Medicaid. Outside of New York, New Jersey has a 40-hour cap on home care hours a week. Most states have caps. It's one of the greatest things about New York is that, you know, you can fight and get as many home care hours as you need to live here. I mean, you private insurance, you might get a fancier wheelchair, but you won't get the home care you have, so it's a give and a take. Any other questions? Concerns, any concerns? Anyone want to give me a hypothetical?
I actually have another question.
Sure.
If you were misclassified at one point and you paid out a spend down and turned out that they recognized it many years later and only reimbursed you what you paid out for the first 9 months, is there any way to recoup all those funds you paid out towards your spend down that you didn't need to pay?
No, like retro.
Why did they say they gave you only 9 months? What was the reason?
They had no explanation. I wrote a letter to the supervisor requesting reimbursement of funds since my dad paid.
Whose fault was it?
Wasn't mine.
I mean, was it
didn't even know there was a
documentation?
DAC
Was
program.
it documentation that you provided that was misinterpreted, or was it,
No,
that was just a mistake on there?
on their part, because I didn't know anything about it, and one of their employees that were submitted so many bills, and they said, why are you submitting so many bills? I mean, stacks.
Right.
And I would do it every time I had to recertify.
I
And
mean,
they
I
said
think.
she determined that I was actually classified as should have been classified as a DAC.
Right. Is it a large amount of money? Well,
Significant, yeah. I was injured at 13.
yeah.
I've been paying the spend down ever since.
How long ago did this change happen? There's
3
three.
years ago.
How many? 3? I mean, the statute of limitations on asking your money back hasn't run for 3 years, so you're okay. I would think you can straight up sue them, maybe, potentially, to try to get a recoup.
I requested forms from them and.
Well,
received an
they're not
answer.
going to help you get money out of themselves. You need a lawyer to do it. It's a very unique situation. I've never heard of that before. I worked on a situation that was similar, where somebody paid rent when they didn't have to pay rent, but the rent was actually it was real rent that they owed, but it wasn't in any way, shape, or enforceable as a disabled person in a weird situation, and the person kept paying the rent, and it ended up being something like $20,000. And we tried to recoup the money. We ended up winning the money, but really losing the case. We won the money through different ways, but the reason why we lost the fight was something called the voluntary payment doctrine, meaning like if you paid into something voluntarily that you really owed, although it wasn't enforceable, and then you want it back later, you can't have the money back because you really owed it. It just happens to be that it would never been enforceable. Your situation is certainly different because you don't really owe that money, so maybe if you can get away with that, you can recoup it as an overpayment. It's really nothing that SSA is going to help you by themselves. They're not interested in you getting money out of them. But if you went to a straight SSI lawyer, a benefits lawyer, I think they would be very curious to see what they can do. And the sooner the better. If you have a lot of paperwork, it's also good. So
Oh,
that's my legal opinion. That's my novice legal opinion on it. That's a very, without researching that a little bit, I don't really know. That's a very tough one.
thank you.
Any others? Less challenging than that?
No, he was asking, our concern was losing SSI or SSDI or Medicaid.
Right.
Mine was always, losing Medicaid I was always worried about because mainly, which you didn't touch on, but there's a program called the CDPAP program.
CDPAP, of course.
And I'm on that CDPAP program. And I think it's great. It gives you a lot of freedoms that other programs don't
Right.
give you as far as home care goes. Like I hire and fire my own aides, I train my own aides.
Right. I'm familiar with it. I'm on CDPAP.
Okay, so I don't think there's anything else like it out there.
What's it called?
Except on the Medicaid.
CDPAP, the
CDPAP.
Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program.
CDPAP?
Yeah.
It's called, it stands for, I love the acronyms.
Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program.
There you go.
How'd you qualify for it?
You just have to apply
If
to
you're
the
Yeah.
qualified for Medicaid, you're qualified for it.
I mean, I'm not going to get too much into the topic of home care,
Yeah,
but
it's a whole nother.
yeah, it's a whole nother. I mean, like
couple
another
hours.
4 hours and that. But I don't see a reason why you would lose CDPAP. I mean, you can work. you have the hours that you have. You know, I've been on CDPAP through the whole time that I worked in law firms and judges and whatever. I've been on CDPAP for 5, 6, 7 years now. You know, there's no, if you maintain your Medicaid eligibility, everything you get from Medicaid doesn't change. So if your money's going to a trust and everything else is going on and you're working whatever, that doesn't change your Medicaid eligibility. That Medicaid number remains active, everything remains the same. So why would you lose it? You know, if you're using a trust, if you're using the Medicaid buy-in program, same thing. You're still a Medicaid recipient. Your Medicaid services are not going to change. Medicaid as an insurer doesn't change. You just have to remain eligible for it. So, and even if you're working, it's not going to make you ineligible per se. I mean, if you're working a lot, they may look at your hours and be like, you know, buddy, you're getting a lot of hours here. But you just have to be really smart about how you explain it, explain that your aid helps you at work, whatever. Or if you have a small business, you need your aid around anyway. I mean, whatever. There's lots of nuances to keeping your hours when you're working significantly. But that aside, there's no reason that you would have to come off CDPAP or something like that. I mean, like I said, I was receiving 12 plus hours of home care, you know, working in a judge's office 12 hours. And I'm sure Medicaid, if they really understood how do you get 12 hours of home care and work 12 hours a day, you know. But it made no difference. I was still eligible. I still follow the rules. And even though it doesn't make perfect logical sense, it worked out, you know. Yes?
Now Medicaid is making these changes where they're making it mandatory, where you have to basically join a long-term care provider.
Yeah, managed long-term care.
So now that you've signed up for this long-term care service, now that you're working, do you have to follow any of, like, does that insurance, like, say you sign up now, you have Fidelis, and you start working, does any of their rules apply, or
They don't
it's
have any.
still just straight Medicaid?
Yeah, they don't make the rules for Medicaid eligibility. That comes from the Department of Health, that comes from the legislature. So your income, all your other stuff in terms of eligibility, that is not affected by the insurer. Again, they control your home care, they control your pills, your doctors, your supplies. They have a lot of control, but that's within the health care services that you receive. They have power and they've taken over. But to be a member as a Medicaid recipient, they don't have control. That's controlled by the state and by the things that I explained. And even with mandatory managed care enrollment, it hasn't changed the dynamic of how you remain eligible for Medicaid. There's actually going to be, I've heard that there's new ways that there's going to be eligibility for Medicaid. They want to give you every opportunity to work and make the services even easier. I've heard, you know, Andrew Cuomo, our governor, is all about it, you know, making even simpler ways and new categories of Medicaid recipients, but whatever, that's very future talk. But for now, the rules are as they are.
I thought the CDPAP program was exempt from that long-term managed care, automatic, mandatory.
No, that's not necessarily true. We're not, the CDPAP program was exempt. It hasn't been exempt for a while. If you're off of straight Medicaid, it's just that you guys in Long Island, I don't think you faced mandatory enrollment yet, have you?
Yes, just.
Yeah, just that. Managed long-term care companies have to have a CDPAP carrier within a certain period of time. If they don't, they have to contract with your current CDPAP carrier, blah, blah, blah. So CDPAP and home care alone is no longer going to be a way for you to stay out of managed care. You know, so that's not going to be true anymore. They do have control over how many hours you have, and unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, they're not allowed to change the amount of hours you have for 90 days. So for 90 days, they may be really nice and peaceful. After 90 days, they do have the power to try to deny you. You have all types of appeals. Again, this is like a really long topic, but you know, that's the short version. I guess I'll be here next month.
Or you're going to be getting lots of emails and phone calls.
So, yeah, that whole part of it is going to change. But again, that doesn't affect your ability to go to work and keep Medicaid. So, any other questions?
Can't talk anymore.
All right.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
No problem. I'm glad I got to out talk with you.
Yeah, good job. That was great. Thank you very much.
Goes online, it's gonna get so many hits.
Oh,
yeah,
More than
yeah,
a
yeah.
computer up.
Well, I have to cut it down into like separate parts because it's going to be a big video. So.
I'm never gonna cook.